There we go. Awesome. So welcome everyone. We're going to be talking today about stage ready indicators. This is all about how to know if you are going to be ready to step on stage, because that is the number one question as coaches that we usually get is like, will I be ready? I'm nervous. Like, how do you know if you'll be ready? So we have myself, Sarah, we have Stephanie and Holly all here to kind of chat about that. If you have any questions, of course, drop those down below. Let us know when it comes to this, but we're just going to have an open discussion about this when it comes to stage ready indicators. So the number one thing to kind of kick this off is that it's not really a number, right? So a lot of the times people are so hung up on the numbers when it comes to getting ready for the stage, like what body fat percentage, how much do you weigh on show day, based on your height. All of these different things, like how much should I be eating and whatever. And that's all kind of relative to each person. So we'll kind of get into that. If Stephanie or Holly, you guys kind of want to take it as you will, go for it.
Okay. I'll jump at once. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, your weight's going to fluctuate. It's going to fluctuate during prep. It's going to fluctuate during the off season. And the number one thing that you really want to focus on is not your weight and not how much. I mean, yeah, you don't want to gain probably more than 20, 30 pounds in the off season because what you pack on has to come off, right? So the less fat you gain, the easier your prep hopefully will be for you. But the number one thing that's really going to help you get ready for the stage is nailing your macros, nailing your workouts, doing everything that your coach has planned for you, everything that's scheduled for you, and not second guessing everything. And hopefully communicating with your coach as much as possible with any question that you have about anything. Like, even if you want to ask, like, why are you doing this? Why are my numbers like this? Well, we'll have an answer for you, but you're probably not going to like it. You can't. Yeah. I mean, that's what I have so far on that. So Holly, you can weigh in if you want to.
Well, these are all good things. I think that a lot of misconception comes into stepping into this sport, because this sport success is measured very differently than any other activity that you will ever participate in. Typically most sports, touchdowns, passes, goals, scores, those points add up and you have a definitive recipe as to who's going to be the winner at the end of the day. When you're competing in like gymnastics or dance or competitive cheer, you have these skills, right? These skills that you have to hit in order to be successful. And then the scoring goes from there. If you're a runner or you've done Tough Mudder, you're successful and you've won because you have the fastest time or you have completed it X amount of times more than anybody else in a specific time frame. Bodybuilding does not work that way. It does not. There is no checklist in terms of, well, if I just weigh this much, or I just have this body fat percentage, or I just have these macros, that means I'm a contender to win. That's not how this sport works. What happens is you work for a very long time, a minimal prep, 16 weeks. And that's very minimal. And you'll see a lot of people crash course their way their first time into a 16-week prep. Can it be done? Yes. Odds are you may not bring your best package to date, but it's a great way to get your feet wet if you're somebody that just likes to go all in. However, those that want to remain competitive in the sport, you have to always think about the long game. And this is where you hear people say, I took 3 to 4 years to build muscle before I decided to prep for a show, where I've taken 2 to 3 years in between shows to build muscle before entering a show. But again, there's no definitive pathway. each coach, as they approach each client, what they do with that client might vary. You could have 10 people on the same team and they all are on different macros. They're on different splits of plans as far as cardio and weightlifting is concerned, because it does come down to how your body responds to the changes in your routine. So I always say, people say, well, you know, what are the mile markers to measure? What are the mile markers to measure? So I'll give you some mile markers. And these are things that we were talking in the last time we all met, but I've given it a lot of thought. Your first 4 weeks on average, and I say this on average because, again, yours might be different. You may be the exception to the rule. I don't know your health history, but on average, if you've never competed in this sport before, the first 4 weeks, you're going to work with your coach to develop your baseline. Because a lot of people come in and they have no idea how many calories they eat a day or what their macros are. They might not even know what a macro is. So that first 4 weeks, your coach is working with you to try to see where your baseline is and just kind of how your body responds. In that first 4 weeks, it's all fun and games and it's great. And you're wondering why you don't see any progress. Well, because we're still figuring you out. We're still getting to know your body, right? You during this time will get to know your body. During those first 4 weeks, you'll start to measure progress based on consistency. So if you want to know if your first 4 weeks were successful, they are successful when you are able to adhere to the workout routine that your coach has given you, and you are able to adhere to the eating plan or macros that you have been given. That's how you measure success in those first 4 weeks. And that is ultimately the solid foundation combined with hydration and sleep. These 4 things are what will dictate your mile markers for success and how you will measure success throughout your entire time prepping for a show. So if you're saying, am I making progress? You're making progress if you can adhere to your workout routine. If you are adhering to the macros or eating plan your coach has given you, you are able to adhere to a solid sleep schedule. And you are able to nail down the amount of hydration your body needs. Those are all mile markers for success. And that is how you're going to measure progress. The next step is you would measure progress in the gym. And you guys chime in with me. I'm a coach, but I'm also an athlete. And I will tell you, if you're flying through reps and you're flying through your workout in 30 minutes and you barely breaking a sweat and you don't look like you're trying to either A, have a baby or take a bowel movement, you may not be making progress because the weights should get heavier.
Yeah. So I'm going to add to that a little bit. And I see all too often and a lot recently is just because I have a specific, reps and sets in your plan for your exercises doesn't mean that you can't bump up the weight. Like if I have 4 sets of 10 reps of bicep curls, and then you're like, oh, that's easy. So you go knock them out with 8 pounds. Okay, you're 3 months in and you're not seeing any progress. Why? Because you're not lifting to your full potential, unless you're really that weak. But if you're that weak, you should still be seeing progress because it's a struggle for you. But you should be lifting to your full potential. Less set, if it's minimal sets, lift freaking heavy, lift harder. Don't just put minimal effort into it and then wonder why, you're feeling strong at the end of the night because you have all this energy left. You should be tanked by the time you leave the gym. You should, whatever you worked out, whether it's your legs, your glutes, arms, whatever it is, you should be maybe kind of feeling like a limp noodle, Can't wait to go recover in that bed of mine.
Right. And I think that's important to note because a lot of people, especially when you work with an online coach, it's sometimes hard to figure out like what weights should I be using compared to like working with a client in person. Especially as a personal trainer, we can be like, oh, we're going to use the 15s because I've seen you use 10s before, right? But it's important, like to know that you need to challenge yourself. Even if your trainer or your coach is not there with you physically, you should still feel challenged at the end of the day. Like, I know when I finish a workout, I'm ready for a nap. Like, that's where it should be. So
Yeah.
you should be challenging yourself. You know, if you kind of are like, okay, this set has been, you know, kind of medium, like it's not too heavy, not too easy, then the next set, bump it up a little bit. See how much you can push yourself. Because each week you should try and keep doing that. Because like Holly was mentioning too, is, you know, that first month you're working with your coach, you're trying to figure out your weights and stuff if you haven't already, for different exercises. You're trying to be consistent with your nutrition. And so during those first 4 weeks is really kind of your baseline for everything. And that's the only thing you should be focusing on in that first 4 weeks. It's not so much how much weight have I lost, how many inches have I lost. You know, it's about being consistent with the basics before you move on to being like, I'm getting ready for the stage type of thing. Like, you need to have a solid foundation first before you can move on to the next step when it comes to all of that.
And there's something to be said about that solid foundation. That solid foundation, that ability to develop a consistency, an adhered consistency, not your version of consistency, the consistency to the T, to the plan. When you develop that level of consistency with your sleep, your hydration, your workouts, and your nutrition, when everything in your world goes to shit and becomes real stressful, you'll be able to go on to autopilot in those 4 areas and continue to be successful in your routine. Now, there's not to say that there is not an exception to the rule where something comes along and is such a major lifestyle hit that it rocks your world. And it happens, right? It happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the most disciplined and consistent of us. That's where communication comes in. And this is that next level of measuring progress and success. You are progressing, growing, and being successful when you can communicate to your coach, I think I need to adjust. That doesn't mean that you have to deep delve into your personal details with your coach unless you feel comfortable to do so. And again, that's between you and your coach. But again, if you tell your coach you're fine, but everything is on fire and you're clearly not fine, especially if you're working with an online coach, they don't know. They don't know because they're only getting the picture that you're painting for them. But, you know, if you have to take a realistic look and just be like, look, you know, my world's falling apart right now. And realistically, for 6 months, I've been able to do 5 days a week at the gym. And I notice I'm only getting there 3. Your coach can help you navigate that to make it more approachable. They're there. That's why you're paying them, but they can't help you help them help you if you're not telling them your needs. If you find that you're extra hungry at the end of the day and like you're lying in bed at 10 o'clock at night and you've blown through all your macros and you just hungry, tell your coach. Why? Because they can help make adjustments. That doesn't mean you're a failure. A lot of people are like, I can't adhere to my plan. I'm a failure. You're not a failure because this whole process is about learning and growing. So it's not that you fail. It's just that there's time and a place for adjustments. And your coach can help you through that. You're not the first person that's ever encountered it. You won't be the last. You're not the only person who can't adhere to a plan or can't adhere to your macros. We've all been there. But again, communication is key. It may be as simple as bumping things up, bumping things down, making an adjustment here, coming up with a snack that may fit into your day or may not, you know, be detrimental to your week. If we know that when you get that extra pang of hunger, these are some XYZ great choices to choose from to keep on hand. So there's never like a failure component because I think a lot of people like, they just feel like they failed. No. You fail when you quit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's to do with an all or nothing mindset too,
Yeah.
when it comes to competing. Because people are really excited and they see all these like pros, right? And you see all the pros just sharing the good a lot of the times rather than the ugly and the hard part of, preparing for a show and their off season and all of that. Like, not everyone shares that. So a lot of the times when, shit hits the fan, we're like all or nothing, like, well, I failed, and that's a big thing for a lot of people. It's not that you failed. It's just, you have to redirect. You have to readjust your plan because it happens to everyone. Things happen in our lives. We have to readjust to that and keep moving forward. The end goal is still the same. It's just how to get there might be a little different. And so, again, you can't compare yourself to anyone else when it comes to this, because everyone's going to be different, which is why we say don't focus on the numbers. So yeah, I love that. And communicating with your coach for sure is key. If a lot of times we will see people who are like, oh, my coach said to do this, but I'm second guessing that. But they never had that conversation with their coach either. So they're, having those thoughts, but they're not communicating. And so they're wondering if they're going to be stage ready, but they're also not asking their coach why their plan is set the way that it is. So I think that that's also key in that moment.
So we talked about those first 4 weeks. Those are those mile markers for success. And that first 4 weeks, those mile markers will stay with you throughout your entire lifting competitive career. They just go through different phases and cycles depending on where you are coming off the stage or going back on the stage or taking some years to build. But still, those core things. I would say no later than week 5 or 6 if you have not done so already. And 9 times out of 10, your coach from the go is going to be asking for progress pics, and they're going to be asking for measurements and or weight. Your weight will fluctuate. Your weight fluctuates anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds. I know that sounds crazy, in a 24-hour period. So your weight chart should look more like almost like an EKG. It's very, very rarely ever going to look like this or this. You will bloat for a variety of reasons. There are just some vegetables that make us gassy. I'm looking at you, leafy greens. It happens, right? Lack of sleep will make you retain water. Stress, making scale go up, that cortisol spike, and probably you're stressing, you're not doing the right thing with your nutrition, you're not doing the right thing with water. Eating foods that we haven't had in a while, like if you're someone who abstains from alcohol and then suddenly you have some alcohol, you can retain that water weight for a couple of days. There's travel weight. If you've been on an airplane or a boat or long car rides, that weight can fluctuate, which is why when your coach asks for these things, what they're looking at is trends. That graph that you are getting is showing them a trend, because they're going to say, hey, remember a couple weeks ago when you said you ate Brussels sprouts and like you spiked? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, I just noticed like we were talking this week and we know that maybe Brussels sprouts may not be the thing for you peak week, because I've noticed a trend. I've noticed that, the weeks where you tell me you're hitting your sleep and all these things, the scale's going down. Keep doing that. So that number is showing them trends. You reporting your habits and routines is showing them trends. Because the nice thing is if you're telling your coach the good, the bad, the ugly, when things are ugly and they know that when things get ugly, you have a tendency to reach for Reese cups, they're going to be able to coach you through that. Because now they know your tells. Now they know your habits. Now they know your routines, because you've got this open dialogue of communication. In addition to that, if you haven't done so already, the next mile marker for success is practicing walking in your heels. The reason why is because a lot of people get on stage and they look like Clydesdale ponies, clip-clopping across the stage. I see some female athletes who have a tendency to do like this weird like hip swivel thing. But when you're walking in heels and you're trying to hip swivel, it does not highlight the figure that you have worked so hard for. There really is an art form to walking in heels. And even if you wear heels all day, every day for your job, and I love a good set of heels, walking in a pair of platform stilettos is a completely different ballgame than what you're wearing to the club or the bar or your job 5, 6, 7 days a week. So it would behoove you to practice in these heels, and Steph will attest to this, on all surfaces.
Yes.
Practice on hardwood, practice on concrete, practice on carpet, do it all, because Steph, tell us about your heel story on all surfaces.
Yeah, I mean, every stage is going to be different. So you might go to a stage where it's solid, hard, glossy floor, kind of like concrete or that hardwood or whatever. And then you might get to the stage and it might be the solid floor with a strip of carpet, but then you end up on the strip of carpet because it's just the way they have it laid out. You know, or it could just be kind of like a gym floor stuff where it's very hard to pivot. So if you go to pivot and you're not used to it, you're going to roll an ankle because you can't pivot on rubber floors with your high heels. Okay. Rubber on rubber just creates friction. So it don't work out very well. And yeah, I mean, when I very first started competing, I have like laminate hardwood in my house, so it's very slippery. So I was used to that because I would practice my walk on it. I would practice my turns on it. So I just glided everywhere I went, basically, you know. I had no problem with pivoting at all. And then when I get on the stage, it was completely different. And when I went to pivot, I damn near ate it hard. So you don't want to do that in front of like 500 people. But so yeah, go outside and walk on the concrete, practice on your deck, like even on wood, you know, practice on gym floors, practice on any surface, hard surface that you can think of, linoleum, anything, because then you can get the feel for it. So if you do go on stage for your first time and all of a sudden it changes, your platform changes from like a solid slippery surface to carpet all of a sudden, you can hopefully adjust, you know, and catch yourself before you make a big mistake, embarrassing mistake.
No, and I agree with that because I had the same issue around the first time that I did a show. It was laminate up until I got to the center of the stage and they had a little carpet tile. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't practice on that. I had practice on laminate the entire time. And then, of course, the stage had some carpet on it. I was like, dang it. I almost fell myself because of trying to twist and you're not used to, you know, pivoting like that. So definitely can attest to that as well. Definitely practice on all different types of surfaces. That way, when you get there, it's not going to surprise you. You're not going to be a deer in headlights. You're not going to be like, oh, shoot, I didn't practice that. And you're not going to be like anticipating when it's your turn to kind of walk to the center of the stage and kind of freak out. And then, you know, because of course, if you are also worried about, you know, freaking out about pivoting and all of that, you're probably going to forget your routine because you're going to be so focused on not trying to fall. So just a word of advice from us who have done this. But yeah, I definitely think posing is the next thing. Practice posing all the time. Once you get a solid routine down with your training, your nutrition, you know, checking in with your coach, tracking your progress, posing is the very next thing. Because a lot of times the biggest regret for any competitor is that they didn't start soon enough. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want to wait until you're, you know, cutting down at the last, you know, 12 to 16 weeks to start practicing posing. As soon as you know that you are going to compete and you've already gotten a solid routine down, start practicing posing. That is the number one thing that people regret, is that they didn't start soon enough. I've even had clients who I've told multiple times, and yet they still by the time they are crunching in, trying to get ready for the stage, they don't feel that they're ready with their posing. And that's their biggest regret. So take it from us to start practicing posing. And of course, getting yourself familiar with what the judges are looking for. So another part of being stage ready is knowing what the requirements are for your division and your federation. So I always say any clients, like, I can tell you what to expect as a coach, but you're going to become a better athlete if you take and go to their website and actually read what they're looking for your division and for that federation, just so that you are more educated on it, because it does change from year to year. Sometimes they have updates to it, but I say the best information is directly from their website for what the judges are looking for, to know whether or not you are building muscle for that category in the right way, and then also the mandatory poses for that division.
I think it would behoove everyone, if you've never competed before, if this is new for you, or you're switching federations or you're switching categories, go to a show.
Yeah.
You should absolutely make it your homework to go to a show, because you're going to learn a lot. And when I backtrack to that, hey, between week 6 and 8, if you're not doing so already, practice on these shoes. Sarah says, practice your posing. By week 8, if you have done those foundational things, you're developing a foundation of your routine, and it is just a foundation. You need to start working on your stage persona. And you're going to be like, well, Holly, I'm just going to be myself. I've seen a lot of larger than life women and men shrink the minute they hit the lights and the stage. They just shrink. And everything you thought you knew has gone outside of your head. There's something to be said about muscle memory. How you practice something is absolutely how you will perform it. So if you practice half-ass motions, when you get deer in headlights look, you are going to perform half-ass motions. If you are someone who's constantly posing, and I do recommend in the beginning posing in a mirror, right? However, that mirror is not going to be there on stage day. And I see a lot of athletes, they're just doing this like shimmy shake, trying to like get there, whatever, right? Because they've practiced time and time again how to reposition because they're looking in a mirror. No, you should be able to get out there and hit your pose. Like, you're going to add a transition. And I know a lot of people are like, Holly, what's a transition? Well, you can either go up and make a muscle, or you can be memorable because you're going to go up and make a muscle, because you're adding a transition, you're adding a flourish. And these things are very important to practice throughout, because I see a lot of athletes go out there and they hit a pose, and then they hit a pose, and you look like a robot, because there's no transition pieces with your arms to make you memorable. And it really is. If you have 5 people who have all stuck to their nutrition, their sleep, their macros, their communication with their coach, there's going to start to be the little things that set you apart. And it is not your stage weight. It is not your waist circumference. It is not how sparkly your shoes are or how great your nails look. Those are all necessary. But it is your stage presence that can be a deal maker or a deal breaker. I've seen 10 out of 10 packages where you're just like, that's the one I bet money on. It's her, it's him. And they get up there and they have no stage presence. They have poor posture. They don't know how to walk on their heels. They're not sure what to do with their arms as they're walking. They forget to smile, and you should smile the entire time, whether you think you're visible or not. You smile until you step down those stairs. It is all about this stage personality, and your stage personality may not be your real life personality. You may be someone who likes to remain hidden. Don't look at me. Don't draw attention to me. Oh no, you're going to be that person. You need to be that person on stage. You need to command a presence. You should go out there thinking, I want to be seen. I want all eyes on me. You paid a lot of money and you've taken a lot of time. You should absolutely mentally and in your body convey, look at me. And a lot of people don't get that. And I can't speak for other coaches, but it is something that I coach. I know it's something that our group is really big on, because it absolutely can be a deal maker or a deal breaker, regardless of what package you're working with.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you need to have self-confidence in yourself, in your physique. If you don't have that self-confidence at all, don't even step on the stage, because if you're stepping on that stage without any confidence, it ain't gonna go pretty. It's not gonna go your way at all. I mean, you can see that on people when they're just scared shitless. They're scared shitless, and they're second guessing everything that they just did, all the hard work they put into for 2 years or 6 months, however long it took them to get there. And they're about ready to step on the stage, and they're shaking, and they're like, oh my gosh. And I mean, I don't know how many people I've told behind stage, I don't even know them. But like, they'll be like in my category in my class, and they'll be like, oh, I'm freaking out, shaking, I'm freaking out. And I'm like,
Stay focused. Stay focused.
You should relax and take a deep breath. And they just look at me like, why are you so calm? I'm like, well, why not? You know? So yeah. And I think, and one of the biggest things here is that falls into the whole category of being ready for stage is self-confidence. Because if you are not confident in yourself at all through building season, through prep, or anything like that, it's just going to get a lot worse when you get ready to step on that stage, because you think your self-confidence isn't present now, and you're getting up on that stage in front of who knows how many people, plus a panel of judges right in front of you. Well, it's not going to be fun for you, So I think self-confidence is it's a huge thing. Getting ready for the stage, 100%.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, because I am someone who I don't like speaking in front of like a whole group of people, right? Like I've never been like a stage person, but when I first wanted to compete, that was my biggest fear. I was like, I'm going to be on stage and a bunch of people I don't know, right? So you have to kind of develop that very early on. And you get confidence, and you build the confidence by putting in the work. That's really where it comes from. Practice all the different scenarios, practice getting comfortable in front of people you don't know. Like, that's why a lot of the times you'll see competitors that will record themselves posing and post it on social media, or they'll be posing in their gym, and in front of people that they may or may not know that well. And while it is nerve-wracking, you have to think about it. The end goal is to step on stage in front of judges, in front of people you don't know, a whole audience. And if you haven't practiced any of that at all, or even just sharing a posing video with your coach, the one who's helping you through all of this, how are you going to be confident when it comes to the day of your show? And so if you're someone who is like myself, who wasn't practicing a lot of that, it showed on show day. Like, it showed completely. Like, I was a deer in headlights. It could have been a lot better for me, but I didn't practice it. And so a lot of that confidence has to be built early on, and building that stage presence as well. So like Holly was mentioning, I'm going to piggyback off of that, but making sure that you go to a show just to kind of see all these different people and their stage personas. Because one, you're going to remember who's memorable. Why did they stick out to all these other people? Why did they win? Did they have the package and they had the stage presence? You're going to notice little things, but it's also going to help you to determine like how you want to show up on stage and what does well when you're on stage. Now, judging is kind of subjective, what judges, particularly like, but what you have to notice is what is memorable on the stage. What are people going to remember when you step on stage? It's not going to be the people who are kind of like shying away and just kind of robotic. It's going to be something kind of like a dance, and it's very exaggerated, but yet it's very thoughtful and it flows all together very well. And they practiced hundreds of times and they feel very comfortable on this stage, mind you. So it is very important.
Yeah, I think it's also important too, not only to go to shows and watch, but also go to clinics.
Yes.
Go to a clinic, because you can hit up clinics that, you know, they might be small. They might only have like 10, 15 people, or maybe they have a couple hundred people. It just depends on what clinic it is and where you're at. But normally, if you're in a bigger city, normally they're going to have a, you know, bigger turnout. But you get to work with pros, you get to work with judges and everything. They normally hold like mock, you know, a mock show day. So they're going to come out on stage and they're going to do their routines and they're going to talk through every single step. And I think that's a great opportunity as well to build your confidence, because they're not technically judging you there, but they're giving you feedback, you know. So they're judging you, but they're giving you feedback. And everybody is there to learn, you know. And so all different shapes and sizes, you know, you don't have to be skinny mini and cut to go. Like, you're going to be in your off-season bodies. You're going to be, some are going to be in prep, some are not. So that's a good confidence builder right there, because you're going to have to, you know, wear shorts or leggings, but in a sports bra, basically, so they can judge your physique properly and give you the proper feedback. So, you know, clinics, I urge you to go to a clinic or two a year, to be honest. So,
and the last component of stage presence is, and I can say this because there has been a point in time in my life where I made my money wearing next to nothing on a stage. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, in this world that will ever prepare you to be in 6-inch heels with your derriere hanging out, wearing next to nothing on top, and doing it confidently with a smile for as long as it needs to take in front of a room full of strangers. That's where that muscle memory comes in. That's where that stage persona comes in. And you really, you know, people are like, oh, I wear a bathing suit all the time. When you're in a bathing suit all the time, you're usually in other people who are with other people who are also wearing bathing suits. You're at the beach. Not all eyes are on you. They're at the water. They're at the sand. Everyone's focusing on their families or who they came with. Very different than being on a stage with a bunch of people who are wearing all their clothes staring at you. So you really need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the way to do that is to take off them clothes and put on a posing suit whose bottoms are going to be cut just like your stage suit, whose top is cut just like your competition day suit. You know, if you're practicing in a full sports bra, you're not going to have a full sports bra on stage. You're going to minimal fabric, because that minimal fabric allows them to see the lines that you have created. It allows them to see the muscle you have built. It's allowing them to see the structure that you have made. If you're a person who practices in leggings, that's great. However, you will not be in leggings that day. So you have to really commit to practicing all the way. And that means doing kind of like, I guess, what you would consider a dress rehearsal once a week. You should be in that posing suit or that practice suit, and you should be strutting on all surfaces. If you can get to a posing clinic, those first couple times when you're getting your feet wet, you might want to come in shorts and a sports bra or whatever. But you're going to see people show up in legit suits because they have learned that they have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to go to a posing clinic and not know anybody. It's nerve-wracking. And then it's like an added layer of way uncomfort when you're like wearing next to nothing in front of a room full of strangers. But guess what? You're all feeling the same way together, regardless of who's showing it or not. Everyone's thinking the same thing. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. You're all thinking it. Some people just have better poker faces than others, but it definitely is something that needs to be worked on, and needs to be worked on not just the first, like, last 4 weeks. You really have to be comfortable with just wearing next to nothing in front of strangers staring at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all of that because it is nerve-wracking. And that's kind of a motto that I took on early on when I first started competing, was just you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, basically. And just keep on doing it. Like every day, try and do something a little bit more uncomfortable, if you will, because you won't become comfortable with it until you become uncomfortable with it and you get used to it. But I think these are all really great points. Do you guys have anything you want to add before we kind of wrap this up?
I just think, write down these talking points, use them to gauge your success. Because again, this sport is very different than anything else. And, we see you on pages all the time. And I'm sorry, you see all pages and all the time, where am I supposed to be at week 16? But I don't know, because your body and my body are two different bodies, our health histories. So what Steph, Sarah, or myself might look like at week 16 might look totally different because we're different heights, we're different body types. We have, different genetics, different health histories. Our bodies respond to other stressors in different ways. So it's really hard, and it almost makes me feel sad sometimes when I see these posts where people are like, I'm at this weight, I'm never going to make it. What weight were you? Because it's not a criteria you're being judged on. People are like, my waist is whatever. No one's carrying around a measuring tape that day to see. If this isn't Gone with the Wind, where we brag that we have a 16 3/4 waist or 17-inch waist, it doesn't matter, because it depends on your frame and the muscle that you've built to get that X shape. And it's going to measure differently on everybody. It's subjective. It's what the judge's eyes see. There's no mile marker. There's no definitive, well, we took a measuring tape to everybody and this person had the smallest waist, therefore they won. No, you can have a really thick, blocky waist. I'm a blocky waist girl, and I'm only 5 foot. It's a little challenging. And that's where posing practice comes in, because you learn to, I've learned to angle my shoulders in such a way that I'm almost like reaching around behind my back. But I tell you what, my waist looks amazing in that pose, even though it really is a blocky waist. So practice makes perfect. Learn your angles. Your judges, your coaches will help you find those angles. These clinics will help you find those angles. And you can go watch these shows and you can see the difference on who knew what angles and who didn't. Who practiced and who didn't. Who had a 10 out of 10 package, but they were clap hopping in them heels and couldn't turn to save their soul. You'll know. And these are things that you will take mental notes on and hopefully learn and grow from, because this whole process truly is about inner growth. It is pushing yourself past something that you maybe have never tried before. Our bodies and our minds are capable of amazing things, and 9 times out of 10, it is your mind. It is your mind that is stopping you from progressing and growing. Your body is absolutely capable, but it's convincing yourself up here to either commit, to change, to grow, to be opening yourself up to constructive criticism. That's the hard part.
Yep.
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. We've talked a lot about how to be, stage ready, like what indicators will make you, or, to take in turn to know that you are stage ready. But of course, it is subjective at the end of the day. Make sure that you're talking and communicating with your coach before you make any kind of changes, or, if you have any concerns when it comes to that. If you don't have a coach, we are more than welcome to help you in that process. We do offer everything for our clients: training, nutrition. We do offer posing suits, posing, competition suits, all of that. So if you need any help, feel free to reach out to any of us. We'd love to have you and help you in that process. But Hopefully this was very helpful and insightful for someone who is just getting started and is wanting to know whether or not they will be stage ready. But other than that, I think that's all we have.
Yeah. Until next time.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you.